angle I wanted to explore today, because I think that's also really important, especially because I believe in work. In diversity helps in a way of creating this environment at work where people are passionate, but people can be free. And that's when we start talking about human-centered leadership. And it's something that I've seen a lot from you. And especially you do have a varied background from, living in many countries like the UK, China, Russia, US, and more. So how do you see this, what you do, the work you're doing with, Diversity X will also help people change their mindset when it comes to human-centered leadership?
Yeah, before I started really exploring this as I was finding my own purpose, and I read books on the conscious capitalism, and there's this great book I read, which I've literally just forgotten, but it's about a company called Barry Waymiller, a manufacturing company, similar about $3 billion US. They didn't make people redundant during the global financial crisis. How? Because the guy was like, I treat everybody like they're a member of my family. So every decision I have to make, sometimes, like even with members of your family, you have to make hard calls and decisions. But with that in mind, like I treated everybody as if they were my family, what would I do? They were my family. What would I say to them? If that was my child, what advice would I give? And so that stuck with me. And I tried to look at the world like that, and I tried to understand why. So I started exploring. So I actually did my own podcast series called Cocktail Leadership. And I just started speaking to people. One, it was a great way just to chat to people, amazing people, who wrote books and stuff on it. Like Francis Faye was my favorite. Paul Zak, who wrote a book about trust. Oh my gosh. We had some great guests. But it was really to explore that side of human leadership. And the reality is, it's just the way you have to be now. Some call it servant leadership. I call it human leadership. Or you said human-centered leadership. But it's really about focusing on people to drive. But there has to be a link with purpose. People, purpose together to drive. And if you focus on that, the other stuff will come. I genuinely believe that. And there's data around that actually shows that leadership that way actually gets better results. Now, that's not to say like in a crisis where your plane's going down, you're in the middle of heart surgery, you don't need a little bit of command and control. But it's not the way to run a business today. Command and control. Human-centered leadership is. And for me, I love people. I love people. I love exploring why people do what they do. Why do we make the choices we make? Like, even with all the data around, why do we do really stupid stuff like smoking? There's so much information about smoking now, but yet people still will choose to light a cigarette. Why? All of this other, like, why do we code of conduct and every business has a code of conduct how we behave? Why do we choose to break it? We've all done our driving license, pass the test, get in a car, we see the lights. Red, amber, green. It's been on green. You're approaching. It switches to amber. You know what to do now. You know which way that light's going to go. What do you do? They all tell you what to do. They're all saying, hit the brake, slow down. What do we do as humans? We hit the accelerator.
Oh, that little chance. I could just about go in.
I could do it. And I'm halfway across and it's changed red, but I was already across the line.
Yeah.
Right? But why? Like, the rules tell us that's not the right way, not to do it. And the highway code tells us, the driving test, but we as humans. So I love humans and trying to understand why we do what we do. Yes. And I think that plays into leaders should also try and understand their people a bit better and recognize, and this is where the diversity and inclusion is so powerful. It's a tool for greatness. Is that if you are inclusive, you could have an all-white team. You still need to be inclusive. You can still exclude people within that. That inclusion and understanding the equity side of it is it's not equality, equity, understanding where people's position is, where their starting line is, and make the accommodations to not even accommodations, give them the same opportunities, knowing that in mind. I use the analogies of women at home. I'm going to do a generalization, but they tend to do more of the childcare. So they're up early, getting the 2 kids to school. Husband or the guy showers, reads the paper, comes downstairs. They both get to work for 9 o'clock, but she's done 3 hours work already. Who's in the game? Who's in game mode for that first meeting at 9 o'clock? Because he's relaxed. Life's leisure, you know. Yeah, you get the pain of being on the commute, essentially. But she's done 3 hours work already. God damn, it's lunchtime for her. You know, we have to, with that in mind, now we've got that knowledge, what are we going to do with it? Like, or maybe let's start the meeting at 9:30 so everybody can be on point, and firing and productivity and trying to get the most out of people. That's what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and also create this great environment as you're talking about the people. One thing I love about startups, of course, is I see that as a land or a place where you can create, you can innovate. There's also the other aspect of startups that we all know is challenging, it's fast-paced, there's a lot of uncertainties. Yet whenever I check my feed online or read the news, I'm always more motivated and inspired when I see that discussion is starting to change in terms of how do we make sure that we also look after our people. Yes, we know we can't change, it's a startup. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to work long hours sometimes. But what do you do as a leader to create what I call the workplace playground, where you could actually get your people, where you empathize with their challenges, when you try to give them the right processes, the tools, the environment, the best you can. You can't control everything, but there is a part that you can control, which I believe that people don't spend a lot of time on that because, well, it's not straightforward and it's not written where, everything that you need to do. And I think when we start looking at this human leadership, the reason why I was really passionate about that and really connected with me was this could be another element in terms of creating startup of the future that really connect with the planet, the profit, and especially the people.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. The startups that get backed certainly from a VC, but even angel investors, what's the opportunity? Okay, you can tick the box. The problem is the problem is the problem. The solution is, we're going to back this. We think, yes, there's so many zeros at the end of that market, like the TAM and the SOM and that. Yeah, okay, there is an opportunity. I have a good feeling about the opportunity and the solution that's been presented to me. The other question, I think, from the Diversity X point of view, this is a critical element, is do we believe in you? And do we believe in that team? And, given where Diversity X is, we're keen on getting in the early stages, pre-seed and seed, when we eventually have capital to deploy. That's a long journey to an exit potentially. And you're going to be building a team and a business. You have to have people to help you grow and scale. You go from 3 to 10 to 25 to 50 to 100 to 500, and it can be like that. It can be fast because that's the way, and that's what this game is. Well, how are you going to manage that? Because being 3 people stuck in a bedroom knocking out some code is one thing. Being 500 people occupying an entire building where you have had to let go to get stuck.
Really hard. Yeah.
And to also people who know more than you.
Yeah.
Because you have this knowledge and expertise in this one bit of space, but you need all of these things to come together. And I sometimes, I'm not saying you should be the dumbest person in the room, but fill yourself with the people who are smarter than you, who know more than you, who can advise you and counsel you and be willing to take that on board. You might still have to make some of the crunch decisions, but bow into their expertise. That's what you're hiring them for. Let them do their jobs. You hire them for a reason. Let them live out that reason. I talk about one company. They hire super smart people, put a straight jacket on them, spoon feed them exactly what to do,
Yes.
spit them out as really stupid people because they no longer and they don't know what to do. And that's the problem.
But the other one is actually not listening, because this is something I see a lot. I was called to work with a team. They were meant to launch 5 products in 2 or 3 months, which I already thought, 5 products launch is crazy for a big company, let alone a small company. Then I sat down with the team because I was the interim head of product. I sat with my team and I said, okay, so have we told the client that we are launching? No. Sales know we're launching? No. Okay, so how do you think that we're launching? We're not launching. Wait, I just spoke to the CEO. Is completely sure that we're launching. They're like, oh, we just gave up telling them that it's not going to happen. So now we say yes. And I thought, hold on a minute. That is not. I mean, when I heard that, of course, you could point fingers here and there, but to me, it does show that, you need to go down into the leadership and underlying culture. What are the events that led the team believing that there is no point arguing or putting our thought across as the expert because we are not being listened to? And usually that will go down to maybe their current manager or the previous manager probably wasn't empowering them or listening to them or making decisions on their behalf, even if they were the ones driving their own products.
Yeah, that's a great story. I think a huge part of it, and I come back to this word quite often, is intentionality. Like that leadership is an intentional skill. And it is a skill set, and it's made up of lots of different elements. But it's a skill set, and you'll be stronger at certain parts than other parts. Listening being a key element of, in fact, it's a must-have. It's like one of those. It's a non-negotiable, right? You've got to have that. But you do have to be inclusive. Like you have it drive. It's so simple if you're intentional. It's not hard. It doesn't cost money. Everybody's like, oh, we have to go. It's getting the power of diversity, and it is a power. Isn't getting people from different backgrounds to get into an organization. It's actually finding that cognitive diversity, those different lived experiences, which comes from people having different backgrounds, different viewpoints, all of those different things. But then when you have them, unleashing them, like in a way that everybody feels safe to share their experiences, their lived experience, to build a better product or service, but also that they are included in that conversation in the first place. That's what it comes down to. And did any of that cost money? No. It just takes intentionality.
Yeah, I agree. And it's got nothing to do with providing more perks or free food or all of this kind of stuff that I see a lot, especially in tech startups. Those are great, but I see that as the icing on the cake. If you don't have the right foundation, if the cake doesn't taste nice, there's nothing you can. All of that, people will appreciate that, but they won't stay. Whereas when you really have the intentionality and the way you lead your people, that's how you grow and flourish. As you said, Kevin, the community helps people to talk and share their issues in a way that might not be perceived nicely if they were to put it online, but at least they can talk and get the support from the community. But one thing I love about, when I was researching you over the last few months, one thing that I noticed was the newsletter that you publish once a month that tends to highlight some of those challenges. And one of them that really, I actually laughed when I read that because I thought that's so true. It was about failing upward as a startup founders, how underestimated founders only have that one opportunity, whereas others, when you fail as a founder, the message is it gives you a better opportunity of succeeding the second time, but yet for other people it's really hard. So I think was that also inspired from your community, or is it something that you've noticed in general?
I think you notice it in general, but there are people in the community who have failed, and but they're trying to gain. The benefits is sometimes they failed without taking other people's money. I think that, so then you can play that down in a different way, and you can talk about the lessons you've learned. But we wrote that after the Adam Newman got backed by AZ, right?
Yeah.
The guy lost billions. He blew money, burnt. Literally, you might as well have set fire to it. And then there's a whole debacle about how he left WeWork and all of that stuff, and the toxic environment. But putting all that away, he's got backed again. And look, I'm not disputing the idea, but what is the chances of that happen? What's her name? Yeah. Elizabeth Holmes. Terrible in terms of some of the stuff that went on. Do you think she's going to get backed again? I doubt it. I doubt it. But why? Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How many failed black founders have you seen that have been back to the hilt the second time round? There's so few in the first place that have been backed. And then
it's not really.
What about the ones who failed? How many of those? And then we don't hear those stories. Why? Because not being created. Not being the first chapter, the first pages aren't being written or having the support. And that's what we need to do, as an industry, as a group of emerging managers. I think there is changes coming. And I'm not using that publisher analogy now. We are in some senses a publisher. We're saying to them, look, here's a check, go and write the first chapters. We'll reiterate, we'll edit it, we'll help you get that book out. But you need some money. So here's the first check to go and do that. We might need to get some other people in to help with the second check or third check along the line. Yeah. But here you go. Go and write those chapters for us because we believe in you. We think you've got something special and you've got a story to tell, or you've got a product that's going to solve a real world problem, and you're not just going to impact a few lives, you're going to impact many lives, and isn't that what we're here for?
Exactly. And I guess the first check does go a long way, at least to get the founders to a point where they can start building on their ideas, knocking on a few more doors, clients, other investors for the second, third checks. But not being able to even get to the first one is definitely a big challenge that we've seen a lot, and especially during the segment that I'm doing as part of the podcast as well. And in fact, we have an interesting question for you, Kevin, from the chat, and it reads, hello, Kevin, your passion for making a change is inspiring. Can you tell us a bit about the challenges faced by underestimated founders and how you work together to overcome them? Very nice question.
Yeah, that's a great question. The challenges are network. Not everybody comes from the same backgrounds, right? Now, someone said to me, if they go to Oxford, they like it, or to Cambridge, they've probably got a network. I was like, not really. You don't. It's not always the same, right? We make an assumption. Oh, well, you went to Oxford, you must be coming from, well, hold on. You might be one of the few that got in on a scholarship or partial scholarship, but you've got a great idea. Or you are the first from your family who's gone to university. You've got into Oxford or Cambridge, hard work, and you're hard working. And now you've got a problem, but you don't have the network. The socio-economic backgrounds are important, and it not just for people of color or women, LGBT plus, all those groups. It happens for other young white men or women too. But I'm really focused on a certain group that tends not to get funded. So I think network, the need to have an introduction for so many VCs is frustrating. Now, many say they don't, but then you look at their websites, they don't even tell you what the criteria is to apply. And then you don't have an in with them. Some talk about how they're a VC and all of this, then there's no contact details. Well, so you need to have that in. I think that is a hindrance for many underestimated founders. Then the entire process itself, you do 4-5 rounds and pitches, and then you get a no, and you don't understand why. it takes longer to get the funding in. And I mean, everybody's seeing that right now, but in the heydays, where's those numbers? Where's these underestimated founders? You know, we were having boom time a little while ago, party, everybody was going
Yes.
for it. Valuations were going through the roof. VCs were like, yeah, have some more, except it was going to the same. Now everybody can go, yeah, but it increased a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Is 0.5%, is 1%, is 2%. Is that material? If you're a finance person, you know that's not material. That's not material at all. And the only reason it's not, they're not making that change is because there isn't the intentionality. It's just sound bites. How many reports do we need to tell us how bad it is? We're going to get another one soon. The Atomico one's going to come out with State of Tech or whatever it is, European State of Tech. It's going to tell us how bad it is, how low the investment in underestimated is. What it doesn't tell us is what are we actually going to do. Now you've got the do-gooders going, yeah, we're going to do something, we're improving, and there are good people trying to do that. But where are the checks on that? You said you're going to do something. What have you done, like really materially, to make change?
Yeah.
That's what frustrates me, and that's why Diversity X, we're focused on completely this pond because we believe it's a blind spot for traditional VC. And you know what? It's no longer just a problem. It's a great opportunity. And I encourage other emerging managers to really tap into that, tap into Diversity X. We've got an amazing group of founders, which, you know, not from a pure thesis point of view, it's not going to meet all of our requirements when we eventually have a fund. But that doesn't mean they're bad businesses. It just means they're right for somebody else with that thesis who focuses on that.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I've seen as well with Diversity X is that there is the Diversity X University that's coming up soon, and there's also, you know, this idea of community is about the mentorship, because I think that especially when you are an underestimated founder, it's really hard to get funding in the first place, but not having a community can also, or even a mentor, can also be quite lonely. I was working with someone who wanted to launch his product, renewable energy, which is very hot at the moment, especially as a startup. Great idea to how to help with the climate crisis. But it took us quite a lot of work because he's an expert with years and years experience in his field. But when it comes to, you know, structuring the team, leadership, when it comes to, you know, time management, product, how do I get the first lead? There's a lot that people have to deal with. And, you know, I was kind of privileged to obviously work with him, to be working with him as he's building his startup. But as you said, not everybody has that support or know where to go to find that support as they go on.
Yeah, it is tough. It's really, really lonely. It's really lonely to try and start a VC firm. It is really, really lonely. The mental health aspect of being a founder is deeply underestimated. And quite frankly, lacking clear support and guidance. And I guess the reason is it's such a fragmented, you know, you're a founder, but there are hubs and there are communities that they're all focused on getting you from here to here, not what your mental state is. So yeah, the ability to ask, and I always say to anybody, just ask your questions in the group. Someone will respond, someone will reach out to you. And we try and push certain questions. You know, when we had the WhatsApp group, people were talking like, I need help. Like literally, they were having a breakdown. Like, you know, and people got on the phone. Like, I know I did. I know other people did. And then you see them a few months later or even a few weeks and they are flying. And there's nothing warmer and you feel that sense of pride and happiness. And they hit. It's great when I meet founders from the community and they're like, oh, do you know what? I was with such and such or such and such or such and such from the community. We were chatting about this and that. And they really helped me with this or I helped them with that. And I'm like, I didn't realize so much was going on in the background that I don't even see. But, you know, that's like, I think that's a joy. It's like having a child that's blossoming and you're not seeing it at school, what they're doing. It's like that for me.
I can definitely relate to that. And there's this I worked with this woman early this year, and as you said, this she actually spent a year. She knows exactly what she wants to do. She wanted to be a founder, but not exactly sure what step to take. That's another, when we're talking really early stage and future founder at that point. And she spent a year trying to find out different experiments. She wanted to go in fintech, or maybe it wasn't fintech, but she liked the climate. She brought how to bring all of these passions together. And after a year, she felt like she failed herself because she didn't manage to really launch anything that took off. And luckily, we bumped into I think it was just one of these events that bring a lot of founders together. And I told her, well, why are you seeing that as a failure? What have you learned from that? And how can you go and, to the point where you can start again? And it took us a lot of months, first just looking at the mindset. So we work on the mindset, and then we start looking at connections on what's out there. She then eventually got into the Carbon 13 groups where she met other founders. By that point, she knew exactly what she wanted to do because she had the fear about being a CEO. And I'm like, being a founder is not about being CEO. Just make your roles available. Just find someone that wants to be CEO. And she did. And now I do have this pleasure when I go on LinkedIn and there's a post about the company that they've started, there's something going on, and especially if when I have a busy day and you see that pop up, like you're saying, where it's a bit like seeing your child going to school and you think, oh, it's so good. And I do love those moments when you see the community and the work that you do to support people who are passionate, but they've been going through such a very, very hard time. But at the same time, that didn't deter them from